white and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Brunton Bugle, the best place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Mike Booth.
On today's episode, we'll be picking the bones of United's dreadful 4-0 defeat in our first ever trip to Sutton United last weekend, while looking ahead to a nice, easy chance for the Blues to bounce back against table toppers Forest Green Rovers. Oh, this is going to be a fun one, Mike, isn't it?
Yeah.
That was not an enjoyable fixture last weekend, I think it's fair to say.
No, it wasn't at all, was it? It was I mean, there was me thinking like, I won't go to an away game as bad as Hartlepool for a while, and then, that happens. But I'll tell you what, I think we actually played worse at Hartlepool, believe it or not.
Well, it just tells you all you need to know then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really? Well, let's get straight into it, Mike. Let's get into some news, because we've actually got a few bits of news to cover this time, haven't we, for once? So before we talk about the Sutton United game, first up, news. After the dreadful weekend defeat at Sutton, United decided to cheer us up / distract us with a bit of good news. That's that midfielder John Mellish has signed a new 2-year contract, including a 1-year option to keep him at the club until the summer of 2023, although effectively it means he's here till the summer of 2024, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In clearer terms. So he's been one of the few bright lights this season, hasn't he, Mike? I mean, he scored twice already this season, and that takes his goal tally up to 18 goals in 82 appearances. Now, I suppose the big question is which club is sniffing around that means Holdsworth decided to extend his deal.
or is it agent patter? Because I think his agent's been doing him a bit of work to get him on TalkSport and stuff, hasn't he? I don't know if it's, but yeah, I'm pleased that he's staying around. He, I have had my shouts that I seem to be bringing up every week that I wouldn't mind seeing him get the armband, to be honest with you. But yeah, he seems in this team right now one of the only ones who actually gives a shit for the team. As
you stated on Saturday, we'll cover that in a minute. He seems to want to be here. That's the thing that stands out from it as well, isn't it? He's talked about the fact that, he didn't really take much time to think about it. The deal's put to him and said, yeah, that sounds good, and signed it. So, and I think he's improving as a player. I don't think anyone can doubt that. He's not perfect. He's not a rounded player, but, he's come up through non-league football. He's not come up through an academy where he's learned a lot of that stuff. So he's learning a lot of it on the job in one sense, isn't he? So, well done to the lad. And I think everyone can say they're pretty happy to see him stay. Other bit of news, Sam Fishburn, he's shown himself far too good for the level he's been sent out to. So after he's just 1 month of his half-season loan at Northern Premier Division side, easy for you to say, Lancaster City, he's been recalled by United, hasn't he, Mike? He's back at the Blues.
Yeah, it's interesting because he's the top scorer at that level. And my mate who's there was saying if he was to stay till January, he reckoned that he would still win the Golden Boot come the end of the season.
That's a good
obviously we're taking him back. I've heard some murmurs that there's a club higher up the non-league pyramid that is, where we're going to send him to, or he might get a bit of a chance here. But to be honest with you, I mean, the way that we're playing football, obviously we'll get onto it in a bit, but we could have Karim Benzema up front, and if we're just lumping aimless long balls, he's not going to get a lot from it. I think it wouldn't do his development any good playing for us right now.
No, that's true, but then in a sense maybe it'd be worth looking at him over a couple of games and then maybe send him out to a National League North side or even to a National League side. I think I'd probably rather see him in National League North side because I think he'd get more game time there. I think it would make more sense to send him to like a Chorley, for instance, maybe, or over to Gateshead, somewhere like that. Maybe I think that would benefit him a lot more.
Blythe Spartans are at that level as well, I think.
Yeah, obviously got ex-Carlisle United players playing there. More on that in a minute, obviously later on in the show. But yeah, no, he made his debut the other night in the competition we don't like to talk about, but which is nice to see. It'd be interesting to see whether he's involved at the weekend as well, or if he goes out on loan before that. Obviously, we're recording this on Wednesday night, so we won't know, unfortunately, whether he's going out anywhere else or not before that. But there you go. A little bit of bad news. Josh Dixon, I mean, it's just one thing after another for him, isn't it? The poor sod. Despite signing a new 2-year deal with somebody, he's not yet featured in the league this campaign, and he's now been ruled out for a month after a knee op to resolve a cartilage issue. They do say after you've had those bad injuries that it does take quite a while, doesn't it, to settle down. I know it was well over a year ago now that he had recovered from the injury, but having had 2 of them, he's always going to have these probably niggly little issues that are going to come up, aren't they? So hopefully this will help clear him out. And to be honest, I'd like to see him go on loan to a National League North or National League side, really, and get a bit of game time.
Yeah, although we don't have a ton of depth in midfield to necessarily be able to afford to do that. I don't know.
Possibly not. I mean, you've got Clough that can play there, and obviously Devine and Charles on the bench. I mean, he's not making the bench at the moment. You might as well send him out somewhere and get some games under his belt. And the final bit of news was United through to the next round of the Cumberland Cup. They saw off Langwathby United 7-0 at Penrith's Frenchfield Stadium last week. It was a team mostly made of youth team players alongside professional keeper Scott Simons, and they saw off the Westmoreland League side with Charlie Watt. He, the star of the show, he scored 4 goals alongside a brace from DJ Taylor and Dan Hillstrike. And I watched the YouTube highlights of this, Mike. It could have been 20. Yeah. It was they battered them. It was weird because they always say men against boys, but actually it was boys against men, and the boys were the ones who came out on top. I mean, to be fair, they're essentially a Saturday League, Sunday League side, aren't they? Langwathby United, so it's no disgrace to them. I saw a few of their players commenting, I think, on the Facebook post, basically saying, they're far better than us. What do you expect? They've been professionally trained, so yeah. Yeah,
but I think their keeper made a few good saves, didn't he?
He did. To be fair, he hit the post a few times, I think, as well.
Yeah, so it's good to for them lads to ultimately be getting a run against men, because they're used to playing against other kids at the minute, and playing against actual men will, obviously the scoreline was made it look a walk in the park, but it's all good for them, and playing in front of something of a crowd that they don't always get for the youth games.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Mike, we've put it off long enough. We're going to have to talk about it now. Sutton United 4, Carl United 0. It was a massive reality check on United's ambitions for this season last weekend, as their first ever trip to Gander Green Lane ended up in their heaviest defeat in the league since the final loss at Cambridge in August 2014. A result you might remember, Mike, cost Graham Cavanagh's job. I was there that day, and to be fair, that was a lot worse than the Sutton United game was. I think it's fair to say. Can the Blues bounce back and start putting together a good run of form, or is this going to be a long old slog of a season? It's hard to tell at the moment, isn't it?
I mean, I feel that the answer to that question swings on whether or not Beach stays or goes. I think it's that simple. If everyone can seem to see that we need to play football with the players that we have, and he seems to be the only person who can't see that, and it's painful as a fan to just you see us lose, you see these awful games, and then the following week nothing's been learnt from it, and it's just terrible to watch at the minute.
Yeah, and obviously when we were leaving the game afterwards, there was someone, I think, talking to us who said that they've been speaking to a player's relatives. I won't say which player because it's not very fair, and they were saying that basically the instructions are just bomb it forward as quickly as you can. And it's worrying if that's the basis of the tactics right now. It's not great, is it? I mean, let's talk a little bit about the trip down before we actually talk about the game, Mike. It was a good day out, wasn't it? We actually enjoyed going down to London for an away game for the first time in a while. Started well for us though, didn't it? Because I turned up at Lime Street Station to meet you and Cameron, and I'd forgotten to bring the match tickets.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my lovely fiancée Megan didn't have time to go back and get them and get back to us before the train arrived. So luckily, Sutton's mad A4 size QR code tickets came in handy, because she just sent me a photo of the QR code and the whole ticket, and that worked. We got in no bother, didn't we? So,
but that being said, if they were normal tickets, you would have just been able to put them in your wallet, and that's that. But,
yeah, I would have remembered them, but because they were so stupidly oversized, I couldn't fit them in my wallet.
Yeah.
So there you go. Nice little trip down the train. Obviously went to Victoria Station, didn't we, for a pint? Met up with Dan and a few of us there, and they headed on a bit early. We got some scran, and then we went down to Sutton, and we had a drink at the old bank next to the station. Had a crack with a couple of Wimbledon and Sutton fans in there, didn't we? It was interesting to have a chat with them while watching Chelsea against Man City. A lot of Chelsea fans in there. They were all saying it's this is typical, isn't it? You got a club playing just down the road, and they're all sat in here watching Chelsea in the pub instead of actually going to the match. But the ground itself, basic, I think, doesn't do it justice, does it?
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. I mean, it's hard to get a good vantage point.
It was dreadful. The view, it was one of those rare occasions where I looked and I thought I should have paid for a seat. I mean, I didn't really want to pay £5 extra because the seats were crap anyway. I mean, literally, it was a small temporary stand in the corner but you did get a view of the pitch at least. And we didn't realise till, I think, well into the second half that you could actually stand on these little bits on the side of the pitch. But even there, they were restricting the amount of people who could go in and then moving people around. And it wasn't very well organised by the stewards there.
It's not a million miles off Kendall's ground, to be honest with you.
I mean, it's a little bit bigger than like the main stand bits are.
Yeah.
But generally, you're right. I mean, on the side of the pitch, the terrace there where the home fans were in, I mean, they were miles away from the pitch, weren't they? I think it used to be a speedway around there as well, or maybe stock cars or something like that, I think, the way it looked. But yeah, quite a basic setup. The terracing behind the goal wasn't steep enough so you could barely see even out the goal we were in front of, could you? So it was not the best, I think it's fair to say. And obviously the game itself was pretty bloody awful. Got back all right afterwards, didn't we? We nearly got stuck at Warren Street Station because the tubes, there was a breakdown at Victoria, wasn't there? But we managed to walk and catch the train back, and just a great fun day out. It's one of those ones I enjoyed taking it off, but I probably won't go again, I don't think, for a while.
Unless it's like an important one.
Yeah, it's not like Orient, where Orient, you can go to Liverpool Street and then hop on the tube from there, and it's a short walk to the ground, and the pub's right by the ground as well. That's one you'd do again, isn't it, really? Because it's a decent day out, whereas Sutton, as a nicer place it was, it's just a pain to get to. Highlight of the day was probably seeing the people queuing to get petrol at the station, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was just about to say that, because it's a good 20-minute walk from the station, isn't it? So we were like, should we walk? Should we get a taxi? We'll walk. And we're glad that we did, because there's basically a petrol station in the middle of the town, and the whole town was ground to a standstill because of people queuing up from every direction for this petrol station.
So even like the buses waiting to go through had to stand and wait while people were queuing for petrol. It was absolutely ridiculous. But there you go. Well, let's talk about the game itself then, Mike. I don't think people want our Judith Chalmers impression of what our day out was like. But just a desperate effort all around, really, wasn't it? It was probably fair to say United fans weren't happy at the final whistle, the ones that were left, to say the least, because about half of them had already gone by that point, I think. Yeah. It was just crap, really, wasn't it, Mike?
It was, yeah. I mean, there's not too many superlatives that I'd want to use to describe it. It's just, I mean, we can talk about tactics and this and that and the other, but I said it after Hartlepool, your formation, your lineup, none of it matters. If you're not going to win your first ball, your second ball, if you're not going to challenge for your headers, none of that stuff matters, and we just weren't challenging. It seems, obviously you've got it written down there, that only Mellish and Dickinson wanted to win the game. Yeah,
they're the only two players who come up with any credit. We'll touch on that a little bit later. I mean, you're right in a sense. I still think tactics play a big part in our tactics.
Oh no, they absolutely do. Yeah, but I mean, you could play the perfect formation and the perfect starting 11, and if they're not going to challenge for the ball, if they're not going to win 50-50s, if they're not going to win first, second balls, we're still going to lose. Yeah.
It was a combination of the two things, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was a dreadful start. I mean, midfield and defence were cut like a hot knife through butter, weren't they? I mean, Riley, for me, has got to be stronger to stop that first cross coming in. He did all right at the start, but then he just let the man get that step away and put the ball in. And then it was originally sort of credited as an own goal by William, but actually I think watching back it probably was the striker's goal. But I've got to say, Whelan could maybe do better, and we'll probably touch on this quite a bit through the 4 goals, but Whelan played a part in all 4, didn't he? He was not great in this game,
no.
It's fair to say. I mean, we couldn't really see what had happened in terms of him not stopping the first goal because of that crap view behind the goal, but we all said straight away, well, what a great start, didn't we?
Yeah, and I mean, I think, Whelan, he struggled to deal with Bennett, to be honest. I think they were sort of man for man for a lot of the game, and Bennett almost reminded me of, we've said this before, sometimes in jest, sometimes been deadly serious, about John Mellish's third stage of evolution as a centre forward. And Richie Bennett kind of made me think of that.
He's a little bit better on the ball, I think, than
but he was just kind of a nuisance, and they weren't playing like long balls to him and using him in that way. Yeah. He was just sort of helping link things up and causing problems with his movement. A
lot of stuff was into his feet and into his chest, and he was comfortable with that, and he probably should have scored a couple of goals maybe, but even though he didn't score goals, he had a good game. He was a bit of a nuisance. I put that as one of the things to talk about, but genuinely, I looked at him and thought, I'd have had him playing up front for us that day.
Yeah.
Definitely, he would have linked play a hell of a lot better than Alessandro did, sadly. But there you go. Yeah, I mean, the second goal, again, not great defending. Bennett wins the initial flick on from the throw. The ball comes down, and then... But I think both Whelan and McDonald were a little bit too standoffish, and the player was allowed to get the shot away. And, 2-0. It's not looking great at half-time at that point. And second half, the third goal, I mean, again, Whelan shrugged off the ball far too easily in the build-up. McDonald, I think, did quite well to stretch and clear it, because I think if he hadn't, he was going to fall straight to Bennett to score in pretty much an empty goal. And it comes to the lad on the edge of the box, and Guy just too slow to close the player down, which is not like him. And I think Norman's got to do better with this goal. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I said it a while ago, we're going to say that a bit this season. Dan said in the last one that it'd be unfair to drop Norman at that point, and I don't think we're at that point anymore. I think if Jensen got a run of games, Norman couldn't feel too hard done by, to be honest with you.
No, I 100% agree with you on there. The fourth goal, again, Whelan lunged in. I don't know what I've watched this again and again, and I'm not 100% sure what he's doing. There's no foul. He just sort of lunges in and sort of almost goes over the ball, misses it. The lad's clean through to score, and I mean, to be fair, Norman's got no chance with that, really. The lad's always going to score there. And yeah, I think the thing that stands out is this Whelan just had a bit of a stinker, really. And he wasn't the only one, let's be fair there, but he didn't have a great game and didn't really help. And is it probably fair to say Four actually flattered us a little bit in this? Because, I mean, as much as like the stats are equal, and we'll talk about that in a minute, they had a few chances. They could have scored 7 or 8, couldn't they? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, they had one shot that, I've just been slacking them off, but Norman did a very good save from.
Yeah, he did that.
But again, corners, it seems almost... I mean, they had 3 headers from 2 or 3 corners.
Bennett had one where he... To be fair, Bennett was actually stretching a little bit, but Norman comes and it's in his 6-yard box, and it's one of those ones you think, come and get something on it. And he didn't, completely missed it, and Bennett had an open goal, but he was stretching to get to the ball, and... Yeah. It just wasn't.
And it seems one of the ones we cleared off the line, they were shouting handball, weren't they?
We could not tell from our view.
No,
from that far post, you couldn't see a single thing.
No.
I think it was blocked twice in that build up to that as well.
Yeah, but at the same time, and because their players were haranguing the refs, shouting handball, you don't see our players do that ever. And obviously it didn't get them the handball decision, but, our players just don't seem to do that, and it's just, I mean... I think you're spot on. I think the scoreline did flatter us. I mean, it is weird seeing the match stats because they make it seem like it was an even contest, and it just wasn't at all.
Yeah. I mean, as well, they could have had a fifth pretty much dead on the final whistle, couldn't they? Because the lad was clean through and onside, and the ref blew the... I don't know, what was the ref thinking? I know it was dead on the 4 minutes, but he could have easily just played on that and let the lad go through and have a go. And to be honest, Chris Beach is probably very lucky because I know it doesn't sound like much, but 5-0 compared to 4-0.
Well, I think as well, not only that, but I think 4 minutes was generous from the referee. I think the referee felt sorry for us because that Mampala red card, their lad was down injured for, them bad leg breaks that you might see like every 3 years or so. Yeah. That's how long he was down for. And then he got back up and played on. And we actually gave the Sutton physio team a standard ovation, didn't we, as they came back round past the away end, because they performed an absolute miracle to cure him from near death.
Well, let's talk about the red card now then. Mampala came on. He was the first sub that was brought on. A little bit of a surprise, that, because Young's looked quite lively in the games he's played, and you've got Clough on there as well, but he chose to bring on Mampala, and he looked very raw, didn't he? He looked like he was told on to go and cause a bit of a nuisance rather than actually any sort of real game plan as to what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, I think that was the thing with the subs in general, to be honest. It was just sort of taking off defensive players, putting on attacking players, and giving them no further instructions. First
booking a little bit harsh. I've seen it again, and it's one of those ones that the player sort of kicks the bottom of his foot. Really, he's had a bad first touch and he's stretching to get the ball. And he's not really gone like stamping down on the player's foot or anything like that. The player basically, he's going to touch the ball. Player gets there first and the player kicks the bottom of his foot essentially. But at the same time, it's a poor touch, and it's one of those ones he's got to be able to react quicker there, really, hasn't he? I think.
Yeah, but it's one of them for me. Obviously, he's come on off the bench. If he'd started and that had happened in the first minute, I'm not sure that you'd see a card necessarily.
Maybe not.
And the second one as well. I mean, I know that you think it's a bit reckless, sort of jumping in like that, but you've got to sort of use your arms when you're jumping. And he just challenged for the ball, and I think it was one of them. And it seems to be quite a trend at the minute in football, in that if a player's going down and he seems badly hurt, the referee just gives a red card. And
I'm in two minds of this one, because I've watched it back, and I've watched it back on slow motion on YouTube. Now, I actually think he wins the header. If you watch it, I think it's more of a clash of heads, if anything, and I think he wins the header. But if you slow it down enough, you notice his arm is across and raised, and he jumps into the player, and he probably may... It's hard to tell if he does catch him, but it looks like he does. If you're already on a booking, don't be going doing that. You're giving the referee a chance to make that decision. It's a bit of naivety, I think, from a young player there, maybe, and hopefully he'll learn a lesson from it. It's one of those ones, I think, the ref could have easily just said, look, calm down, that's your last warning. And at that point, Beach would have had the decision to make, do I actually sub him off here, having already brought him on? That would have probably been the decision. But it's one of those ones, I'm a little bit annoyed being given against us, but if it was the opposition player, I'd probably be screaming for it as well, to be given. It's tough. It's a big learning curve for him. He's going to have to learn, because he's going to miss a game now, and chances are Fishburne's going to be the one who comes on the bench. And if he comes on and does well, Mampala might struggle to make the matchday squad.
Yeah, well, you say Fishburne, but obviously Jimmy Torre has been down the pecking order as well. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. And
he looked lively apparently in that game in midweek. I don't know who it was against. It must have been some random bounce game or something. But there you go. Yeah, so Mampala, big lesson to learn there. We touched on it already, but Norman, he's just not commanding his area, is he?
No.
And I think that's probably affecting the defence as much as anything, because they don't look like they're confident with him in front of them. It's one of those ones, like you say, if Jensen comes in, I don't think Norman could complain too much at the moment, could he?
No, I don't think he could. And like I say, pretty much every corner that they had, they looked like scoring from, whereas every corner that we had, we just didn't look like scoring from.
And again, that's one of, are we losing a bit of aerial threat this season, and have guys set pieces not been as good? Yeah,
I think obviously losing an aerial threat, because sometimes it's not even the players who are the aerial threat themselves. I mean, look back years ago when we had Lubo Mikulik and Peter Murphy. Mikulik didn't score many headers off corners, but there'd be like two men watching him, and then Peter Murphy would just ghost into the far post and score. So, yeah, sometimes, obviously, like we had the likes of
Hayden Coyote,
Bennett causing problems, and then sometimes it'd just be Zanzala would poke it in, and so I think we miss that sort of aerial threat massively, both defending and attacking corners.
At the moment, we've only really got McDonald and Mellish, haven't we?
Yeah,
but Mellish will get you goals, but McDonald's not really going to offer a goal threat. He's not that kind of player. So.
No, but for me, keepers, if the corner's going in the 6-yard box, you should be having it. You should be getting something on it, and he just doesn't. And it's terrifying every single time we concede a corner. Like I say, they had a couple of free headers, which it's not Norman's fault that they're free headers, because the defenders should be picking them up, but. Yeah, he really needs to do better commanding his area.
Yeah, so we've said there before that Mellish and Dickinson are probably the only two players to come out with credit, I think. I mean, we only had really two clear chances all afternoon, didn't we? And they both fell to Mellish. Yeah. First one, actually, to be fair, Gibson did well to get a good low crossing, and Mellish kind of player he is. He's just instinct, isn't he? He just flicked it with his right foot, and the keeper made a good save.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard people calling that a sitter, and I disagree with that, to be honest.
There wasn't at all.
No, exactly. And it was a very good save as well.
Yeah, it was just instinct, wasn't it, from both of them?
Yeah.
Instinct for the shot, instinct for the save. It's just the way it is. And the second half chance he created himself, really. It was almost Gazaresque, wasn't it? Flicking over the defender's head, and then couldn't quite get the volley past the keeper. It was kind of tight angle, wasn't it? There wasn't. He probably should have gone across the other way, but just had to take the shot as quickly as he could. So, and like I said, Dickinson got in some really good positions, especially the first half, and he was whipping balls across the box, and there was no one there. That's the problem when you play Alessandro as your main striker. He is not going to get in the box. Last season we got away with it because we had the likes of Coyote and Patrick, who, especially Coyote, would get into the box, wouldn't he? He'd move away from his wing position to get into the box. We just don't have that now, do we?
No, and I feel like, it's easy for us to say we need sort of someone in that number 9 role scoring goals, but I think Dickinson misses that more than anyone. I think if we had a number 9 banging in goals, Dickinson would be banging in the assists.
Yeah.
And Dickinson as well, it's worth mentioning, he was the first one to come over to the fans after the game.
Yeah, he got a bit of stick, and I think that was a bit harsh. I think. Yeah. I mean, I heard a few people saying, "Why are you clapping them?" I said, "Well, we both said, didn't we? The only two we've really clapping is Mellish and Dickinson because they've actually." And Dickinson came over and fronted up, and there's no need to be giving him abuse. Anyone could see that he worked his backside off, and he was genuinely looked gutted at the final whistle. And you said like Mellish at one point he cut the ball back to Clough, and Clough didn't get to it, and he kicked the advertising hoarding because he was so annoyed. And you can see how much it really does mean to him. And
I mean, the whole team should have been kicking advertisement hoardings or pooling their pay together to hire a digger to destroy the ground because they're so angry. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just absolutely pathetic. And I think that the big thing for me after the game is that other clubs, it would be like absolute hell to pay, but I kind of feel like with us, there's just a sense of apathy. Like, it happens, and that's that, and that's what...
It kind of feels like we're in a cycle of we have one season where we do really well and just miss out, end up having the bones picked out of our team or players leave. Next season, it's just a bit shit, struggle a bit, and then the next season, we then have a good season, but we don't quite do it. It just feels like a continuous cycle, and it just gets tiresome, and eventually that cycle will break, and it won't be a break by going up. It'll be a break by going the other direction, the way things go with us. Yeah,
definitely. And I mean, I have kind of thought for a while that we might beat Rochdale's record of been in this league for, 30, 40 years or whatever it was.
The way it's going,
because it just seems that... I mean, I'd like to say that we won't go down again, but... Yeah, you just never know the way things are going. We're certainly in a spiral of decline overall, aren't we?
Yeah, it's not great at the moment, is it? Post-match interview wise from Beach, said it was unacceptable and not good enough, and then literally 2 minutes later says he saw some things he likes in that performance. And I mean, he may have only said a few things, but sorry, but just don't say that. Even if you are thinking that deep down. You've got to front up and say to the fans, it's just unacceptable. They need to be better. They need to be doing more. I need to do more, stuff like that. But he just came across as quite a little bit blasé in the interview, if I'm honest, after he made that apology. And, he came over to the fans, he seemed to be smiling. And I was like, how can you be smiling after a game like that?
Well, you say he came over to the fans, but he did the sort of sheepish... No, he sort of... I don't think he left the centre circle, really. Do you know what I mean? He just sort of... Yeah, I think he knew that they'd be getting absolute pelters. Like
he mentioned about the fact, we may be a bit funny, but actually, stats wise, we had as many shots, we had more corners. And he's like, I don't care. It's stat padding, and you know what? Yeah. It's so misleading, that stats, because I tell you what, 8 or 9 of those shots were long range efforts that were straight at Buzianis that pretty much any keeper at this level would save.
Didn't test him at all. Yeah,
no.
I mean, they could have had their under-9s keeper in, and he would have stopped most of them.
Tell you what, some of those kids playing at half time on the pitch, some of their efforts were better than ours. I'll tell you that much now. They got a better applause than any Carlisle player did, which tells you all you need to know. The subs, I mean, it just felt like he said. It just felt like we were just throwing players on for the sake of it, weren't we? It was hard to tell what we were doing at times. Dickinson ended up at left back, Riley at right back. I mean, Riley didn't have a great game either, I should say, actually.
No, and we are big fans of his, but yeah, I agree.
And then, like I said, Mampala didn't seem to know what his job was. He was just sort of busying about, and we saw his impact at the end of the day with his 2 bookings. Young, I felt a bit for because I think he put a bit of effort in. You can see there's a player there, can't you? And I mean, bringing on Clough, probably your best player. Let's be honest. After you're already down to 10 men, what's the point?
Yeah, no, exactly.
What is the point?
Clough did create that chance for Young that was obviously offside, but yeah, I mean, you could see that there's a player in there with him, and it'll be interesting to see what we do. But if we're not going to play football, there's no point having a Clough in the team.
No, exactly. You bang right there, and it's continuously frustrating as to how much we're just making the same mistakes every game.
Yeah,
playing this long ball football. And I tell you what, you couldn't have wished for a worse game, really. Or, some might say actually a better game because people see us the underdog, and we're not expected to win it. But top of the table coming this weekend, don't fancy our chances.
No, and they've rolled over much better teams than us. Well, I say better teams than us, teams that have been playing better than us, I'd like to say, because I do believe, even after everything that we've seen, we do have a good team on paper. And I've said all along, there's 3 things that make a quality manager at our level. And the first one is your recruitment, which Beach has been very good at, to be fair. I'm not going to take anything away there.
That's fair.
Your second one is your tactics, which have just not been there. And your third one is your ability to just get players to run through brick walls for you. And I feel like John Mellis will run through brick walls for anybody. Well,
I feel like we had that last season, but it's increasingly game by game. Those players, after we concede, their heads drop and they don't look like they believe they'll get back into a game.
Exactly.
Beach's record of getting us back into games when we're behind is not great anyway. We know that. No. That's been bad from... I think we've managed to win once, from behind so far, which was against Leyton Orient. I think we've only managed something like 10 points from positions where we're behind in games, which is pretty dire for how many games.
Exactly, and to be honest, I feel like if we get rid of Beach sooner rather than later, we've still got a chance to save this season because I do, like I say, I do believe that we have a good team, and I would take someone.
Are you firmly in the Beach out camp now? Then, or are you?
I am so far in the Beach out camp. I've got my tent. It's it's. I've said all along, some of the performances have you walking the tightrope of Beach in or Beach out, but his post-match comments just send me over the edge. He just doesn't have a clue. And, I don't expect any manager to win, but learn from it when we don't. And that is what isn't happening, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a fair point. Although I'd argue you didn't sound like you got a tent set up. You sound like you've got a static home and everything, and you're going full hog. I'm still a little bit on the fence. I still think if you can get a result against Forest Green and then actually get us on a run, okay, you might start to believe a little bit more. But there's got to be a slight change in philosophy at the very least. We're not talking about playing. I did the fans forum after the game in Radio Cumbria, and I said, I don't want us to be peak Guardiola Barcelona. I just want us to play the ball a little bit more.
Exactly.
And every time McDonald gets the ball and he's about to lodge it, you're like, and that's not McDonald's fault. He's been told to do that. That's the instructions of the manager. So, it's one thing after another, isn't it? But like you say, it's been an interesting game this weekend, and whether Beach learns his lesson. We'll get on in a minute. Actually, there's no point in talking about it now because we're about to preview the Forest Green game. So, tell you what, Mike. Oh, in fact, before we finish, actually, Dan did actually send me over his thoughts on the Sutton game. So let's have a quick listen to what Dan had to say.
Quick few thoughts on the debacle that was Sutton. We don't do ifs, buts, or maybes. We do absolutes. Some people might know where that quote's from, and that was absolute dog shite. It really, really was. It was on a par with for 6-0 at half-time by Berry. It just wasn't very good. I'm not going to ramble on about it because I'm pretty sure Lee and Mike have covered it, but just not good enough, I'm afraid.
Oh, succinct into the point there from Dan. Fair play.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. So that was Dan's views on it. A little bit more from Dan on his predictions for the Forest Green game and the play for both shortly, because we're going to be back soon to preview the Forest Green game. We're back in just a jiff. I need to record some more half-time stings, don't I, for the show? I keep forgetting to do them.
Get the booing.
I need to get just a one long boo.
I had someone after the game compliment me on my booing, and I said thank you. I've had a lot of practice.
Yeah, we had a few people actually, I should say, after the Sutton game, come up and say, "Oh, you'll have to be calming down for the podcast by the time you record." So, yeah, thanks to those people who spoke to us. So this season, the second half of the show is being sponsored by the Cal United Sports Club London branch. The London branch is open to all Cal United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston to Singapore, and of course every part of London and the South East, and all fans up in Cumbria as well. They regularly meet up on away trips, as well as arranging many social events and sports games, and do fundraising for the club. Should say they actually had an event, didn't they, at Sutton Cricket Club, which they mentioned a few times. They'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section this season too. You can find out more about the London branch at their website, carlisle-londonbranch.org. We would have had a full thing from them actually on the last episode, previewing the Sutton thing, but obviously with me being on holiday, just weren't really able to fit that in. I had a nice little holiday, I should say, actually. A few people asking me about me at the game, saying how did it go on. It was all right. I was supposed to go to Barcelona v Granada, but it absolutely chucked down. And when I say chucked down, I mean really chucked down at the game on the day. So we ended up actually sacking it off because we had seats right up in the gods. And as you'd imagine, we travelled to Barcelona without any waterproofs because you don't really think of taking waterproofs when you go to Barcelona, do you? So there you go.
No.
Okay, well, let's get on to talk about the Forest Green Rovers game then now, Mike. And as usual, we catch up with the opposition at this point in the show. And this week, we spoke to our old friends Nathan and Sham at the excellent Forest Green Rovers podcast, Heaven's Devils. If you don't know them, they're the two Americans who follow Forest Green, and they've got their own podcast. Genuinely, give it a listen if you get the chance. I was on their show this week as well, and they're nuts, aren't they, Mike? They're very, very typically very enthusiastic Americans. As they say, we're a big American dummies who don't know anything about football. But
they actually do know quite a bit.
No, they do. They're very knowledgeable. And they're very knowledgeable on League Two as well. They're more knowledgeable than they actually give themselves credit for, I think it's fair to say. But it's entertaining. It's very different to all the other podcasts you listen to, so it's worth a listen.
On a slight side note, I say they know about football. When I was in the States, I was there during the 2010 World Cup. And I convinced people that because the UK are 5 hours ahead, I'd just call my dad and I knew the result from the final and I wasn't going to tell anyone it. And they actually believed me. So, yeah.
Oh, dear. That doesn't tell you much about the American education system, does it? There you go. So, yeah, we talked about their long-distance support for Rovers from New York City, how they foster close links with the club itself, and why they've made such a good start to the season. So here's the chat I had with the guys earlier this week. Okay, so here we are with this week's Opposition Fans podcast bit, and it's one of the ones I've been looking forward to because it's our old friends from Forest Green. Probably the only people we were close with last season was the guys with the Lowdown podcast who we spoke to, I think, 5 times. They were like most of them more than I did to my parents, I think, last year. I
love those guys, though. Sorry, don't interrupt your intro, but I love those guys. Shout out Julian.
Yes, shout out to Julian, indeed. Yes, it's the guys from the Heaven's Devils podcast, the US-based Forest Green podcast. How's it going, guys?
Oh, wonderful, man. Wonderful.
You're feeling great. It's a part of the season, for sure.
Yeah, beautiful day here in New York City. It's been amazing here. We had kind of a disappointing draw yesterday against Tranmere, but just the season we've been on fire. We've been so consistent. So we've been scoring goals like crazy. So, for a couple dumb Americans, that's what we look for. We just want to see goals. That's all we care about. Score, score, score.
Me and his flowing, so we're happy.
That's right. That's right.
Brilliant. Well, we'll get on to actually how Forest Green are doing this season shortly, but it's a long time since we obviously spoke to you last. How are you still following Forest Green from afar? Because I've been following you on Instagram and stuff like that. You seem to have built up a little sort of fan base, a little fan group over there almost. And you go watching the games in bars and stuff like that. It seems to be really a real community building there.
Oh yeah, it's been brilliant. That's the beauty of the pod is we've been able to connect and meet so many other people who are like us, who were just like international fans who loved what FGR does off the pitch in terms of the green initiatives, the vegan stuff. Different people are attracted to Forest Green for different reasons. Some people solely for the environment, others solely for the vegan stuff, others for both. And so we knew that there were other people like us out there. That's kind of why we made the pod for that, that international fan who was curious, who had no relationship to Gloucestershire. But we wanted to try to bring that group together and try to build a connection between the club and fans like us. And we've been so lucky because we've met people here in the city, people all around the world, actually. And we've been able to build like a little FGR NYC fan club of about 25 of us on our best day. But I think we're growing, and all the time we're getting, DMs from other people in the city who are like, oh, I just found out, about you guys. I'm really interested in Forest Green. We'd love to come, I'd love to come to a watch party. So we try to do a few watch parties, a year. I don't know. We're going to do like 5 or 6 this year if we can, where we just go to a bar. Remember, it's early here, so it's 10 a.m. So we need to get a bar to open up for us, get their big screen, and then we all watch it. We all watch it there. But when we don't have the big watch events, we just get together as friends, either at my house, at Sham's house. We have another friend actually who's from the area. He's from Slad, which is a little village near England. So we go to his house and we just get together and watch the game. And something really cool, actually, I mentioned like how cool it is that we meet people from all over the world. So one of the people we met through this was a fan from Israel who just happened to be in New York City yesterday. And so we invited him over and we watched the game together, and it was just so fun. So,
and you may not understand this. New York City is a big city. Obviously, everybody knows it. There are a bunch of sports teams, but the number one sport for people in New York City is canceling plans. The degree of difficulty of sometimes getting everybody together to support is a bit high, but we've just been pleasantly surprised with the enthusiasm and people's willingness to kind of meet and support the club.
I think you had a little move, didn't you, to watch that playoff game against Newport last season? I mean, how hard was that to watch the heartache of that? Because I watched that at home on Sky over here. And it was an incredible game. I mean, the conditions were absolutely ridiculous. But I mean, considering you'd managed to drag, because it looked like you almost were going to miss out on the playoffs, and you managed to drag yourself just about back into it. And obviously, the Jamil Matt injury didn't help things either. But it must have been so difficult, especially as you had been in the top 3 for so long, to watch that.
It was such a roller coaster of emotions, The second match, I mean, the first leg was just kind of disappointing, but we had faith. We had faith in our interim manager, Jimmy Ball. We had faith in the boys. And it was a surprise to all of us. Jamil Matt, Dan Sweeney, both came back. We didn't expect either of them to be healthy. They were on the bench for the first Newport match. It was like a surprise to everybody. They got in for the last few minutes, and then they started against Newport in the second leg. And we got off to a crazy start. Did we score 2 or 3 goals in the first half? I don't remember. 2 or 3 goals. We were ahead on aggregate out of nowhere. And we were just like, oh my God. And we were just dominating play. We felt like, oh, this is over. We're going to the finals, baby. And then Newport comes roaring back, gets 2 or 3 goals. I forget what the final score is, but whatever. They go back. We're even, and then they go ahead on goal difference. And now we're like, oh no, it's over. The dream's over. And then Jamma scores, I think in the 87th, 88th minute, something like that, to bring us back even, send us to extra time. And then extra time again, like we're there the whole time we're in it. We're like, oh, we're going to PKs, we're going to penalty kicks, and then boom, Newport, just break our hearts the last second.
119th minute or something, right? It was
it was 119th. It was Maynard, wasn't it?
Yep.
So you had the 89-year-old man, Kevin Ellison, coming on playing for.
Oh, he had a beautiful goal too. Beautiful goal against us in that game. Just one unbelievable goal. But at the end of the day, we were definitely disappointed, but we also felt a big sense of pride because of how the boys played under all this adversity, sacking a manager, having this brand new interim manager come in for the last few games and being down. I think it was 2-0 on aggregate to Newport from the first leg, and just fighting and coming back.
The fight that they showed was like a morale booster. And that's what it felt like, a moral victory, even though the ultimate result didn't go our way and it's the end of our season. We felt like we ended the season on a high in terms of like the spirit at the club.
Yeah, it was great momentum going into this season.
I mean, it was quite an introduction for you guys to the craziness of the playoffs in the Football League. They are genuinely by far the most entertaining games you'll see all season, just because teams they don't care. We played against Exeter a few seasons ago, and I think over like the previous 4 games we played against them, I think the aggregate score was something like 12-11 or something like that. I think we'd drawn with them 3-3 twice.
Oh my God.
And we drew the first playoff game 3-3, and then the second game we lost 3-2 to a 96-minute winner, which was quite devastating, as we'd managed to get it back again like you in the 90th minute to look like we were going to take it extra time, but there you go. So we talked about the fact that your podcast is quite unique for a lower league club, obviously looking from a completely different angle from most, including ours. And over the last few months or so, you seem to be getting a real good link with the club as well. You get into with a lot of the players, with obviously the management, and obviously the owner as well, Dale Vince. I think he did one with you guys, didn't he?
Yeah.
What's that like been? How has that felt to be able to have that close link with the club from so far away?
Super surprising for one.
Yeah.
Everybody to say no. I mean, very politely, but very firmly saying no.
Yeah, absolutely. So when Sham and I first made this, well, first of all, the idea to make this podcast kind of came from a drunk text from me to Sham, like, hey, we should do a Forest Green Rovers podcast. And anyway, so we made the first episode. It was awful. And we were like, oh, no one's going to listen to this. Not even our wives are going to listen to this. And we were right. Our wives didn't listen to it. But anyway, yeah. So
we gave it 5 minutes and then decided.
But yeah, so it's just been, like Sham said, surprising, unexpected. But it just shows like the magic of lower league football and how it's different from the top leagues, how it really is like a community. And you feel like you really are part of the club. You feel like you have an impact on what happens in the club. You have a voice, and we've just been so privileged that the club, that the players have been so generous with their time to like come speak to two idiots like us. And so yeah, we're just so grateful. And as long as they're willing to talk, we're always willing to have them on. But yeah, we've just been so lucky in that respect. And I think that's kind of like, Sham and I are dummies. We don't know what we're talking about, especially when it comes to football. We're just dumb fans. So what the pod kind of does is we bring on players and we bring on members of the club with the goal of helping fans connect with these players, with these club, like in terms of who they are off the pitch as human beings. We want to try to build a stronger relationship there rather than analyze football, which is something Sham and I absolutely cannot do.
We like to the likes of you, Lee, and much more knowledgeable folks. So we're just trying to have fun and build that connection a little bit, and we're hoping to learn too. So maybe in a couple of years, I can vary with the right amount of disdain, say the name Priestley Farquhar or whatever the name of the dude.
Farquhar, I think.
Farquhar, okay.
Right?
Yeah, that's
greatest name in League Two.
Yeah,
brilliant. Let's talk about the start of this season then. I mean, you mentioned there you've had the momentum of getting yourselves back into the playoffs last season and doing fairly well, albeit getting beaten in the semis last year. You seem to have just got off to a flying start. I mentioned when we had a chat for your podcast that all three of us on the podcast, I think this season, predicted you guys would finish top three. I went for top spot, so I'm pretty pleased with how things are going so far. You must be over the moon with how things have gone. I mean, what's been the big difference from last season? Because the new gaffer's come in and he seems to just taken to it like a duck to water, because it's his first job as at an EFL level club, isn't it? I think he was at Telford before, someone like that. But he seems to have done a brilliant job. What's been the big secret?
That's it. I mean, I think that's it. Rob Edwards is the secret. Not just Rob Edwards. I want to say also a huge credit to Dale and our director of football, Richard Hughes, because they were able to keep some really key players. And we've kept pretty much the same squad as last year. We've added a few critical components. One of the things that really cost us last season is in the midfield. We had a bunch of injuries, a slew of injuries, and we didn't have players who could step up and kind of take on those roles. And so that was a huge, huge point of the recruitment. I think we brought in 4 midfielders. I don't know if that's right, but we brought in a ton of midfielders. So we brought in, pieces that we were missing, and we've kept pretty much everyone else the same. And that's a huge credit to Richard Hughes, because there were some guys like Dokes, who we thought was gone for sure, to a bigger club. What's that?
Maybe even Cadden might get
Nicky Cadden. Yeah, well, his contract wasn't up, but the fact that we've kept him, because he's destined for big things
player.
as well.
Really like him. Really rate him.
Oh, he's brilliant. Yeah. So I think the front office, or I don't know if that's what you call it in the UK, but our director of football, Richard Hughes, has been a huge on the personnel side. I think we have one of the most talented squads, and then with Rob Edwards, he's just injected this belief, this confidence in the boys. We just talked with Maddie.
I'll have to add quick, Nathan. It's also Richie Kyle too. Like we hear players as well, because Rob Edwards is the manager, but he has this assistant, and I feel like together with their England youth experience, it seems like they brought a fresh kind of message to the younger squad players. and at the same time, maybe utilizing and harnessing the wisdom of a player like Jamil Matt. So yeah, they've seemed to have struck a chord, and it's working for now. But as we say, long may it continue, but we'll see. It's a long season.
And I'll give you just a quick example here. Like we just spoke with Matty Stevens, our striker, currently the leading scorer in League Two, the current League Two player of the month. So we just talked to him right before we talked to you. Actually, Lee, he was on the pod an hour ago. And we asked him, like last year, he scored 3 goals in 28 appearances. He was with us, and then he went on loan to Stevenage. 3 goals, 28 appearances. He got 6 goals in 9 appearances. And we're like, what's the difference? And he's like Rob Edwards, Richie Kyle. They believe in me. They've shown trust in me, and they've helped me believe in myself. And every player we talk to, same thing. They feel emboldened to take chances, to take risks. And it's made all the difference.
I think it kind of shows, isn't it? Because there's a terminology that's used over here. I don't know if you guys have heard it before, the managerial merry-go-round, where basically there's a select group of managers who just end up getting the same jobs. They fail at one club, end up going to another club, and round it goes. And sometimes it just helps to pick someone who hasn't been on that managerial merry-go-round, and he's fresh, he's got new ideas. I mean, we got that from Beach. Beach had never been a manager before he came to us. He'd been a caretaker a couple of times, but he'd been an assistant coach at Rochdale for years. So he came in with completely new ideas as a manager. It's not quite working right now, but came in at least, and he got something new into the team. Whereas we've in the past we had John Sheridan as manager, who's an interesting character to say the least. He's a man who clearly hates having to be a football manager. We beat Oldham 6-0 on Boxing Day one day, and he was complaining after the game about players not putting effort in certain situations. And you're like, how can you not be happy? We just beating someone 6-0. Yeah, it's Christmas. Come on. But yeah, it just shows the advantage, doesn't it? So who are the key players to watch out for then this season, guys? Because we know the obvious ones. I think it's Boo Adams is there, isn't it? And also you mentioned, I mean, I really rate Nicky Cadden. I genuinely think is one of the best wing backs, full backs in the division. Who else should we be looking out for?
Yeah, well, I just want to quickly say one thing about what you just said. Dale Vince literally said exactly what you said. He's like, we don't want to go the traditional route and get a manager for one of these like League Two, League One managers. Everyone knows we want to kind of break the mold, bring in someone with fresh ideas. So you're spot on with that. On good play, on our best players, you actually mentioned Ibu Adams. Interestingly, Ibu has not started the last 2 matches, and I don't know that he'll start against Carlisle. So he got a red card, so he got suspended, I think 3 games. And he when he came back, Jack Aitchison had taken his spot while he was suspended, and Jack Aitchison played so well that Rob Edwards just couldn't bench him, and so Ibu's still having to try to earn his spot back. But yeah, Ibu, the energy Ibu brings is just unparalleled. Nicky Cadden, like you said, that he's not staying in League Two, much longer. Just a brilliant player.
And the young guy that developed really well, I think, too, is Dom Bernard. Like, he was a little iffy at the start of the season. I think people have doubted his ability to marshal a defense or, make a play or not make a mistake. But his consistency playing out of the back, I think, has been really a great point to the beginning of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And also on the right side, Nicky Cadden gets all the credit on the left side, but Kane Wilson has been also a brilliant right wing back. And then of course, if you deliver them the service, Jamil Matt and Matty Stevens have really come on, and they're going to put them away. So huge credit to our defense. We've now had 4 clean sheets in a row. Our scoring gets a lot of gets all the plaudits because we are the top scoring team right now in League Two, but we've had 4 clean sheets in a row, and that's a huge credit to goalkeeper Luke McGee and our defensive 3 back 3 with Dan Sweeney, Don Bernard, as Sean mentioned, and then the other one sometimes rotates between Jordan Moore Taylor and Bailey Cargill. But yeah, it's a good team, man. It's a lot of talent on this team.
I'm a bit terrified for next weekend. I would have said all that, but yeah. Okay, guys, let's sort of start to wrap it up. Predictions for this weekend's game.
I want to keep the clean sheet going, the clean sheet streak going. So I'm gonna go 3-0. I think we need some goals after the last one. I'm going 3-0. And I always make this prediction. It's never come true. I'm saying Don Bernard, our defender, gets all 3 goals. He gets the hat trick. He's never scored. He's never scored. but this is the weekend he's going to do it.
Okay.
So what do you got, Sean?
I'm going to put £1 on that this weekend and see how
let's put £1 on it.
Nice. I'm going to say 3-1. I'm hoping for a clean sheet, but I feel like, we're going to get a little, maybe a little too frothy at the mouth trying to go forward. And I do think every once in a while we're a little bit susceptible at the back. So I think Carlisle is gonna get one at home, especially. So 3-1.
Yeah, to be honest, I wouldn't disagree with either of those predictions, the way we're playing at the moment. Finally, guys, I've got to ask you the question. When are you coming over to the UK? Because we said about this last season, weren't we? Are you going to get yourselves over to watch a Forest Green game soon?
Oh, yes. We can't wait. Yes. We can't wait. We're waiting for the right moment to. Yeah.
So we're planning, hopefully, depending on the COVID situation, all that good stuff. But we're hoping February. Sean and I have a little break then, so we're hoping to come in February. Beautiful, beautiful weather that time of year in England. We hear. So we're hoping cold. February. Yeah, and then we want to try to get a big international group in April. We want to do 3 games in April. It's Barrow away, so we'll get to see the old boss, Mark Cooper, and get to go up to Barrow and Furness, the Riviera of England.
Feed the ducks there, feed the ducks.
Let me tell you now, that is not a journey for the lighthearted.
That's why it's got to be our first away day.
It's the closest away game for Carlisle, but because of how far you have to travel on the road, it's actually further than Morecambe would be if we still played Morecambe. It's on. People say, because what you do is you go up the M6 and you turn off and go down this A road, and the people say it's on the end of the world's longest cul-de-sac. Because it's you get to the end of the road and that's the end of the world. Basically, you're at Barrow. Welcome to Barrow.
I love it. Interesting
place, but you get lovely views from their ground. I'll give them that.
Yeah. So we definitely the plan is like we do Barrow away. Then there's a home match. I forget who FGR plays at home, and then there's another away match at Bristol Rovers, which is just right down the road, from Nailsworth. So and we get to see another old FGR player, Aaron Collins, down there at Bristol Rovers. So. It's going to be a fun one. That's we're trying to make a big international trip, rally the troops, and get going for that. But it's coming this spring / winter, COVID depending.
Well, I'm hoping to get to my first trip down to the new lawn in January when we play down there, because I've still not managed to make it. Unfortunately, all the other people I travel with have all been before, and they said, "I'm never doing it again. It's too far. It's too far." And going up that hill to the ground is like, no, not doing it again. And we never win there. So what's the
great test of cardiovascular health for sure.
Yeah, exactly that. Guys, thank you so much for getting up the time. I know you've got a few other bits to do with more Forest Green related people, I'm sure. But as much as I don't think we're going to win, I do hope we do. And hopefully we're talking next January, and you guys will be flying at the top, and we'll finally be up in the playoffs.
Yes, or number 2 right behind us. That's what I'm hoping for.
I've just seen a pig flying by my window there, so I think there's not much chance of that happening, but we'll see.
Well, Lee, we do, like we said to you on our pod, we do have a soft spot for Carlisle. We're rooting for Carlisle. We hope you guys turn it around right after Saturday, not before Saturday, but after Saturday. We hope you right the ship, turn it around, get back on track, because Sean and I both. We got a soft spot for Carlisle. We're rooting for you guys. So thank you for having us on too, Lee. Always good to catch up and chat.
Yeah, great to capture you guys too. And like I said, good luck for the rest of the season.
Oh, thank you, Lee. You too.
Cheers. Okay, thanks once again to both Nathan and Sham for that. Really appreciate them giving up a bit of their time. Always good to catch up with them. It's a shame that they're not going to be getting over for the game down at Forest Green in January, but maybe, you never know, we might actually catch up with them. I mean, poor sods. Their planned trip is they're going to come to the Barrow game, watch them play at Barrow. And I told them, that's a trip that most Carlisle fans aren't even looking forward to, and we only have to go down the road for it. So
well, I don't know how they're planning on getting there, but if it's by train, I think they'll have a stunning insight into the British rail network.
Yes. Let's just leave it there, shall we? This weekend's game's against Forest Green Rovers. Referee Samuel Barrett. It's his second season at EFL referee. This season so far, he's taken charge of 10 games. He's handed out 38 yellow cards and no red cards. And he's only refereed United once before, which was the 2-0 win over Scunthorpe United last season, in which Ryan Loft was booked for the visitors. So pretty average record, really, looking at it. He's not really handed out red cards this season, so No, we could always make a difference there. Head-to-head wise, we played them 12 times in our history, of which we've won 5, drawn 3, and Forest Green have won 4. Classic clash, Mike. I've gone back in time, quite a way back in time here. I could have picked the 4-1 win when Nathan Thomas got his hat-trick a couple of years ago. But I've not gone for that. No, I've gone all the way back to the first time the two sides met. As remembering United's first trip to the lawn, not the new lawn, not the current ground, it's the old ground. That's how long ago it was. Where United actually picked their first ever win at conference level. So the Blues had opened up their campaign that season after relegation from the third division with a very uninspiring 0-0 draw against Canvey Island. And that was followed up by a challenging 2-2 draw in midweek at Northwich Victoria. I think it was a little bit of a wake-up call, I think, for a lot of people as to, we're not just going to steamroll everyone in this division.
Yeah.
Although, ironically, our next 2 games, we scored 10 goals in 2 games.
Yeah. I think one was Farnborough, wasn't it?
Farnborough 7-0, yeah.
Yeah.
Still annoys me that we didn't get another goal to equal the all-time biggest win. But then again, we don't really want that attached to conference football, I suppose. But there you go.
Yeah.
So, the Blues started this game slowly, but then took the lead after 20 minutes. With their first shot on goal, Andy Priest picked up the ball from Brunton Bugle and he let fly from 25 yards. It took a big deflection and flew into the top corner. I should say that I haven't got any highlights of this game. I can't find them anywhere, which is really frustrating because I used to have the old conference football TV back in the day, didn't you? And for some reason, the highlights of this game never appeared anywhere, I don't think.
Yeah, I think they've disappeared, haven't they? Because they were all on there, but yeah.
Yeah. The remainder of the first half saw Rovers come close to equalising, but they missed 3 gilt-edged chances to level the score. And after the break, a save from Glennon and a goal-mouth clearance from Peter Murphy kept United ahead. The hosts would continue to cause problems, but then, despite that pressure, it was United who extended their lead. It was debutant Magno Silva Vieira who came off the bench to make it 2-0. He initially played a through ball for Peter Murphy, who saw his shot saved, but Vieira was there to pounce on the rebound and grab his first United goal. The game was wrapped up within 6 minutes to go when Murphy hammered the ball low past Rovers keeper Perrin, scoring all 3 points for the trip back to Cumbria. I've put the lineup here, Mike, from that day. Quite surprising, really. There were still quite a few remnants of the previous season there, wasn't there, when you look at it? I mean, you've still got Lee Andrews there, Will McDonough. I mean, Lee Andrews actually didn't leave till the season after, did he? He didn't feature that much in the conference from memory. Will McDonough was still there. He was on the bench. And Brian Shelley actually started this game. I completely forgot that he actually started that season. I think Paul Anderson had an injury, didn't he, I think?
Yeah, and I think we got Dave Baharrell in midway through that season, didn't we, as well?
Yeah. And obviously, the lineup basically was Matty Glenn in net with a back 4 of Brian Shelley, Peter Murphy, Kevin Gray and Tom Cowan. Your midfield was Brendan McGill, Chris Billy, Chris Lumsden and Carlos Rocker. And then you had Andy Priest and Carl Hawley up front. And Craig Farrell came on for Carlos Rocker. And Vieira came on for Andy Priest. And on the bench, you had Lee Andrews, Kieran Westwood, and Will McDonough. Yeah, it's going back in time that bit, isn't it?
I know. I mean, you have to say, you look at that team, and, you know, we've spoken before about the sort of leadership void in our current team. I mean, there's a few players there who you'd give the captain's armband to, you know, who would sort of lead others by example.
I mean, 3 of that back 4 would all be captains.
Yeah, basically,
You'd argue probably Matty Glennon could probably do it. Chris Lumsden definitely could do it, and Priest obviously is an obvious one, really. So
Chris Billy and as well was well into his 30s at that point. I think
Billy's one that was always a little bit quieter, though, wasn't he, than you'd think. So
yeah, but he was one of them who's like hard work would sort of set the tempo for everyone.
Led by example, didn't he? But
yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on to the played for both section, Mike. And it's a bit of a shorter one this week. There's only 11 players who played for both clubs. So I'm very interested to see who Dan has picked out as he's played for both for this. So let's hear what Dan sent us in.
This week's played for both is a player who's probably a bit of a favourite of Lee's back in the day. It's the one and only Who Let the Heggs Out, Carl Heggs. Started his career at a local non-league side, Leicester United, being from the Leicester area. When he was about 2021, he got a move to West Bromwich Albion, and he was actually there for about 4 years. Played about 40-odd games, scored the odd goal. Had a little bit of a loan at Bristol Rovers before sealing a move to Swansea for a couple of years. Made, again, 40-odd appearances, scored a few goals. He then moved to Northampton, where he had quite a good season. I think Ian Atkins possibly signed him there. He made nearly 50 appearances, scored a handful again, and then he actually went in a very local move from Northampton to Rushden and Diamonds, which was quite a thing because they were rivals for a couple of years. He then had a little bit of a loan spell at Chester where he again teamed up with Ian Atkins, but he didn't last long there, and soon rocked up at Brunton Park in July 2000, signed a 2-year deal, but he only spent 1 season with us, again under Ian Atkins. Scored about 5 goals, including the famous one in the draw at Lincoln, which is on YouTube. He then went to Forest Green, where he was playing under Nigel Spink, the ex-Villa goalkeeper. He spent a season there, and then he sort of went on a bit of a roundabout. He went to Ilkeston, Tamworth, Hinckley, Redditch, and he just seemed to go backwards and forwards between these teams for a couple of seasons. He was actually still playing in his early 40s at Hinckley in 2013. I think he was more manager, assistant manager, and just helping out. But that's this week's played for both, Carl Heggs. And if you have a quick look on his Wikipedia, he's definitely uploaded the picture himself. You'll see what I mean.
Okay, we'll have to have a look at Carl Heggs' Wikipedia. I'm glad he chose Heggs. You know what? He was one of those players, I think, when he first arrived, I think he had an ankle injury, didn't he? And he really struggled to make an impact. But after he had an operation and he was out for a bit, when he came back, he looked a different player. He looked like a player who could cause a few problems. And obviously that famous goal at Lincoln, it's a ridiculous finish when you look back. It's like a sort of side-footed twisting volley, isn't it, over the keeper? And what Dan doesn't mention is when you watch the video on YouTube, you can see Dan on the pitch. I think he basically running on with several other people. But yeah, I liked Heggsy. I don't think he was as bad. And what actually Dan failed to mention there is the fact that he was one of the 5 players that Andrew Whittaker and Knighton famously tried to sack, didn't they? Basically, and tried to get rid of them, just sacking them. And they all stood their ground and said, no, you can't sack us. We've got a contract for next season. And basically they all stayed. I think the only one who ended up leaving was Heggs, who got offered basically a chance to buy out his contract, basically, and said, okay, if you give me this, I'll bugger off, basically, and he did. But he was... I think his son was born in Carlisle, wasn't he? I think his son's called Eden, because he always makes a point about the fact that he's got good memories of Carlisle, because he liked to go fishing and stuff on the River Eden and bits like that. So, there you go. So there you go. Carl Heggs is Dan's played for both. Let's go through the list and make it. Shouldn't take as long as it normally does. A lad who's still playing. He's captain of Barrow now, Mark Ellis. He had a loan spot at Forest Green from United, wasn't it? I think. And was he part of the side actually got them out of the National League? I think he was, wasn't he? I think he went there on loan.
Yeah. I think he's won a few promotions from the National League, hasn't he?
Yeah, he seems to be like a bit of an expert at dropping down to that level, doesn't he? Paul Fitzpatrick. Now, there's a blast from the past. He's from the early 90s. He scored quite a few goals. I think he used to take free kicks and penalties. But he was on Workington, actually, for a bit as well, towards the end of his career. I remember him playing there. Paul Fitzpatrick. Chris Freestone. He's a player that a lot of fans would probably try to forget. I think we had him on loan from Middlesbrough back in the day. And I think he played something like 5 games and scored maybe 1 or 2 goals, possibly. I'm not 100% on that one. I'll double check in a sec. But he then basically ended up, I think... It was either Hartlepool or why did he end up going after that? Sorry, yeah, he was on loan from Middlesbrough. He played 5 games and scored 2 goals. He then ended up joining Northampton. Actually, did quite well there. But he went to Hartlepool. He played 37 goals and scored 7 goals. 37 games and scored 7 goals. Sorry for them. But he always seemed to have a habit of scoring against us for some reason, which was quite frustrating. But yeah, so he played for quite a few different clubs, actually, when you look down the list of clubs he's played for. I think he's been involved in the England setup, actually, as a coach for a bit, possibly. Because if you look him up, there's a photo of him wearing England jacket at some point. Or that might be just for England C international, possibly. I'm not 100% on that. Mo Harkin, who had a very brief spell with United in the start. I think it was start of Collins' time in charge, wasn't it? I think. He's one of the famous players, because we had about 7 or 8 players on like 1-month contracts, didn't we? I think, or something like that. And I think he was one of them, and I think he played about 6 or 7 games before leaving. Heggs, obviously, previously mentioned. The one I thought Dan might pick, but he didn't. Liam Noble. He had a decent spell at Forest Green, quite popular down there, like he was with United. I think he's here in Morpeth Town now, or something like that, I think.
But wasn't he on like a 3-year deal or something mad?
Something crazy like that. I think they're one of those North East clubs that's quite ambitious at the moment. Lenny Pidgley, his spell at Forest Green, he didn't actually play a game for them, but he was there. Damon Searle, he was with United for a couple of seasons toward the end of the 90s. He actually scored in the Forest Green's victory over United in the conference season. He scored the winning goal in that game. Michael Taylor, I don't know if you remember him, Mike. He was on loan from Blackburn, I think, under Roddy Collins, I think. Signed around about the same time we had Sutton and Farrell on loan, I think. I seem to remember. Magno Vieira, obviously previously mentioned, scored on his debut for United against Forest Green. Probably the only other club he had a really good spell at was Forest Green, wasn't it? He was very popular down there. And the less said about the last one, the better. Paul Warhurst, so there you go. Let's talk about Forest Green themselves then, Mike. Probably fair to say it's no surprise to anyone on this podcast about their good start, is it? I think all three of us predicted they would finish in the top three, and I even went for top spot, which I'll keep mentioning as long as they are on top of the league. I mean, it's not really a big shock that they're right up there, is it?
No, not at all. And they've had a sort of mixed bag of games so far this season, haven't they? I think they've played Tranmere and they've played Exeter, who were sort of two of the tougher games, and obviously they haven't dropped points against them, and they've been picking up points against the lesser teams like us. So
When you put it like that, it does make you realise, doesn't it? I mean, it is interesting, like you say. I think they drew both of those games 0-0, didn't they? Against
I think so.
Exeter and Tranmere. So it shows that they're keeping out the better, what you might consider the better sides anyway. They're an interesting club, aren't they? Both on and off the field. I mean, yes, I mean, clearly with the crowds they get, they do have a bit of money behind them to sustain the club at Football League level, but they're not throwing bucket loads of money at player wages, are they, when you look at the squad they've got?
No,
they're not like a Salford. Yeah,
they're doing it in quite a sustainable way.
Fairly similar to what we're doing, in the sense that they're signing young players that they can potentially sell on, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And, they're kind of an actual Football League club now. I mean, for years, I don't know what it is, but I feel like when you get relegated, you kind of look for the most tin pot sounding team and be like, oh, I can't believe that we're playing against the likes of
Forest Green Rovers.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what he said. To be fair, we all said that when we went down to the conference that season. We all said, God, we're playing Forest bloody Green Rovers this season.
Exactly. And likewise, when Leeds got relegated from the Championship, they were like, oh, I can't believe that we're playing against Carlisle United.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's true. It's a fair point. But yeah, it's one of those ones, isn't it? And I think there was still a little slight feeling of that when they came into the league, but actually, even though they're not getting the crowds probably that a lot of clubs would get, like say a Wrexham or a Notts County or a Grimsby would get coming back up into the league, they're a well-run club and they seem to be ambitious, and they're not investing stupid amounts of money in like paying transfer fees and stuff like that. They're just looking at getting good coaches in and good players in on the right budget. And if they sold a couple of players last season, didn't they? And they're like, when they went, it's fair enough, they've gone. We'll reinvest the money and move on. And that's the difference, isn't it? And
yeah, definitely. We never seem to cope when that happens with us. And
no, we never seem to reinvest in the same way. There seems to be a delay in terms of getting us back to that level, doesn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And Exeter, another one who seem to lose players, but they just seem to still always be knocking around that end of the table, regardless.
Although it should be said, I mean, they've still not managed to get out of this league as well, so it's a fair point. Yeah. They've got big ambitions, Forest Green. At the moment, they're a village team, aren't they? Because they're basically based in a small town, Nailsworth.
It's a village. It's calling it a town's very generous. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's smaller than Cockermouth, actually. That's how small the town is. Stroud's the nearest proper town, isn't it? And that's about 7 or 8 miles away, something like that. So you can't go there by train, basically, unless you want to fork out a decent wedge for a taxi there and back. But yeah, what they're planning to do is they want to become a county club, don't they? So they want to represent Gloucestershire away from Cheltenham and Gloucester, which are right next to each other. Away from that, they want to target the wider Gloucestershire area. So what they're planning is they're looking to build a new modern wooden stadium, which fits in with their eco ethos, doesn't it? Which will be right by a junction of the M5, basically. And I think the idea is they'd look at, I don't know if it's quite close to a railway line as well. They might look to get a station there or something. But basically, they've got big ambitions, haven't they? And I don't know where the stage is with the stadium development at the moment, but they're a club that is aiming to get themselves to League One, I think, at the very least.
Yeah, definitely, and they've got the ambition, and they seem to be able to keep hold of some quality players at least, and replace those who leave. And good luck to them. I only wish that we were run in a similar manager, but kept the meat pies.
Yeah, definitely keep the meat pies. Yes, I mean, interesting you mentioned that. Obviously, they managed to keep the majority of their squad together this season, and they've added to key areas, plus made it interesting. And I think it's so far to say good appointment as manager by bringing Rob Edwards in. He's the former Wolves and Blackpool midfielder, not the Rob Edwards who played for us in the early 90s. It's his first full-time EFL management role, and he's taken to it like a duck to water. He's previously had spells as manager of AFC Telford, Wolves under-23s and England under-16s. And I think it's given him a sort of interesting and diverse coaching outlook, doesn't it? He's looked at all places, hasn't he? He's obviously had to deal with non-league football. He's had to deal with players who are not quite at the professional level yet, and they wanted to push on to be professionals. And then he's also done with the ones who are just starting out in the game as well. And I think he had a bit of involvement in England 18s as well. So that gives him a different look, really, to the game, doesn't it? To maybe, I'd say, someone like a Chris Beach, who's obviously been involved. I know he's been involved in youth football, but he's mainly been involved at League 1, League 2 football as a coach for the last 10, 12 years, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, because it was a bit of a, I don't know, two sides of a coin when they got rid of Cooper, in that, like, will we do better, or has he been keeping us at this end?
Yeah, holding them back, basically.
Yeah, and it seems, certainly so far, that it was the right thing to do, getting rid of Cooper, but they had these sort of starts to the season under him, and it would come away, wouldn't it? So
that's true. That's true. But by all accounts, Cooper can be an abrasive person. I think it's fair to say.
That's one way to put it.
That's the way a lot of people report him. Whereas Edwards is a bit young and a bit more up and coming. He might be a little bit more understanding, possibly. I don't know, to be honest. But all the signs initially are that he's getting the best out of a young but talented squad, and one of those players we've picked for star man is Matty Stevens. I mean, Jamil Matt's the one everyone focuses on, isn't he? Because at this level, he scores goals. He's an experienced target man, and he was the main man in attack for them last season. But this time around, it's Stevens who stepped up to the plate. Prior to this season, his goal scoring record's pretty terrible, actually, when you look at it. I think he started out at Barnet. He didn't score that many, but then Peterborough, the kind of club that likes to pick out players from non-league levels and develop them, they signed him, and he didn't really play too much for Peterborough. He went out on loan a few times. He had one impressive loan spell at Kettering, where I think he got like 25 goals in 44 appearances over a season for them. But for Forest Green last season, he only managed 2 league goals, and then he was shipped out to Stevenage on loan in the second half of the campaign. He only scored once in 18 appearances, albeit 14 of those were as a sub, so he basically was a backup strike for them. But something's clicked under Edwards, and the guys from Heaven's Devil said that they were speaking to him, and he basically said to him, "What's the difference?" And he said, "The manager believes in me. He's worked really closely on my game." He said, "I can see what you're good at and what you're not good at, and let's work on developing and making the things you're not good at better." And it seems to be working, and it shows sometimes it's not always about signing the finished product as a player, is it? Because
yeah, definitely.
I'd say most people would not put money on him to be top scorer in League 2 this season, and yet he's got 6 goals in 10 games so far this season. That's as many as he managed in all competitions last campaign, and all of them are coming League 2, and he's the top scorer.
Yeah, and he doesn't look like he's going to stop anytime soon either, does he? So, yeah, I mean, it's quite hard to pick a key player for them, to be honest, because they really do have quite a few. And Nicky Cadden as well, he had a good game against us.
We're both huge fans of him, aren't we? He's one of those players. I mean, Dan definitely is, and Dan always says, like, he's another one of those Scottish players that you look and think we've missed out on there. We should really have been. That's the sort of player we should be targeting in the Scottish lower leagues, really.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, problem is we did that a couple of seasons ago, didn't we? Signed Iredale and what's his name? Who's at Dundee now? Christy Elliott. The Rolls Royce. Sorry, how could I forget?
And we got Stefan Skugel, who admittedly, I think, did we get him from Sheffield United?
He was Sheffield United.
He's from Scotland, isn't he?
Yeah. So yeah, he's one we signed, and I don't know. I think he was at Livingston, wasn't he? By the time we signed him, Skugel maybe.
Maybe.
Not 100% of that, but yeah, I mean, you might look and say, we've been once bitten, twice shy with that, but Idell's proving he's a good player. He's playing at League One level now. None of our players are.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's you're right. I mean, Cadden's a great player. He really is. And Kane Wilson on the other wing back flank is another one that they highlighted from the Heavens Devils podcast. On top of that, I mean, Jack Hendry's come down from Scotland, from Ross County, and he's done really well by all accounts. And the aforementioned Jamil Matt, I mean, he's got a bit of experience in Nous up front, and now the pressure's off him because he's not the only real, main goal scorer in their squad, is he? When you look at it, Stevens is now contributing, and that means Matt can contribute in other areas as well as looking to score goals, can't he? And that's probably the big thing they were missing, weren't they, actually? They had Matt as a goal scorer. They never had anyone else until now.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they put us to shame, to be honest, because, we've had many managers over the years use our location as an excuse for why we can't have good players, but they're in the middle of nowhere as well. And, like we said before, not only are they getting good players in, but they're able to keep a lot of them as well.
Yeah, I mean, they've picked off a few players from like Newport and Bristol City and places like that, but they're managing to drag players down from Scotland to come and play for them.
Exactly.
Why aren't we doing that?
If they can, why can't we? Yeah.
Why aren't we doing that? That's a big question to ask, isn't it? Not a huge amount of departures over the summer for them, outside probably the lone players going back. I think it was Odin Bailey, wasn't it, that went back to Birmingham City?
Yeah. He looked very good for them as well.
He did, yeah. But it doesn't look like they're missing him so far. I mean, Chris Stokes is probably the one that you may have looked at and thought they might be missing his experience, but actually so far it's not really made much of a difference, has it? They've coped fine without him, so fair play to them. So yeah, results-wise, the only real big slip-up so far was the 2-0 defeat at home to Port Vale a few games ago, and actually the Valiant are probably looking a bit better than we expected this season so far, aren't they? Outside of that, it's been goals galore. I mean, they won 6-3 against Crawley earlier in the season, and they weren't keeping clean sheets to start with. In August, they didn't manage to keep a single clean sheet, and then come September, something's clicked, and they played 4 games and they haven't conceded a single goal in those 4 games.
Yeah, exactly. And, Stevenage were my dark horse. I think, were they your dark horse as well?
I don't know if they were, but I would have, seconded you saying that they're one of those teams to watch out for.
Yeah. And
not doing well, are they?
Well, no, but I mean, Forest Green tanked them 4-0, so yeah, they're certainly not a team to be messed with this season.
Absolutely not. Right, well, let's touch on United then, Mike. Injuries-wise, obviously you mentioned Josh Dixon is out. Looks like Justin Abrams could be a doubt as well. He picked up a knock in training before the Sutton game. He's having a scan, I think, on it. We probably won't find out about that until Thursday or Friday in the pre-match press conference, which obviously we were recording before, so we don't know. How do you bounce back from such a poor performance and defeat last weekend? Does he need to make big changes? Because managers are always reluctant to make whole-scale changes because it gives an impression that they've lost the plot a bit, and if that doesn't work, then people say, well, what else can he do? He's just lost the direction. That's where an issue comes with that, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I keep saying it's not about wholesale changes. It's not about changing the entire 11 and changing the way that they play. If he's got his little 11 that he likes, he can play that, but just have them play football. That's literally the only thing that needs changing. And if it doesn't work, make changes from that. But clearly, doing what we're doing isn't working. So it needs a change somewhere.
It's funny because someone said, I think it was after the game, was saying, we do all those little passing triangles and stuff in the pre-match water. What's the bloody point? We never do any of them on the pitch. But there you go.
They may as well just stand half the team on the halfway line, the other half, exactly, like on the goal line, and just hoof it. Well,
it was somewhere I read somewhere. Someone was saying that in terms of tactics. I might have heard this. It might have even been Cameron that said it on the way back, or someone. But the problem is with a lot of British teams is they play direct football, but then they never actually practice long passing.
That was me.
It was you.
I learned that on a coaching course. In fact, I learned a few long ball passing drills. If Chris Beach wants to give me a call sometime, if that's what you want to do, practice it, work on it. Work around it.
Last proper preview episode we did, I mentioned, is it time to break up the midfield three? I think that question stands again. I think, is it time? I mean, Riley started the season really well, but actually last couple of games he's looked a little bit ropey. And we like him. We think he's a good player. You might even want to use him as a right back, maybe even possibly. He's he's not looking quite the same. Callum Guy, again, I know he's captain, but he's not been the same Callum Guy this season so far. And we know he's a great player. His set pieces don't look as strong either, really. And I know that's not 100% his fault, but the delivery-wise isn't always the best. And do you break that up? And I mean, I've not mentioned Mellish there deliberately because I think most would probably agree he's probably one of the midfield three at the moment you wouldn't drop because he's playing so well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said before, with Clough, if we're going to play football, Clough will be brilliant for us.
How do you fit him in the team, though?
Play football.
but how do we fit him into the lineup? Because Beach doesn't seem to know how. He's really struggling with that one, isn't he? That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, at the minute, I maybe wouldn't begrudge seeing Riley have a little spell out the team, maybe. I mean, some people have said play him at right back, but I think that's a bit unfair on Mellor, to be honest with you. Yeah, and sort of play Mellish and Guy as a two and Clough a bit further on, but does Mellish need sort of that other midfielder alongside him, for when he goes a bit further forward to cover?
I'm not 100% sure he does. I think it's worth a look to see if it works. Because like I said, Riley wasn't doing much covering at the weekend, unfortunately. He was really struggling, so you never know. But yeah, I think he's got to find a way of fitting Clough into this team. He's got to get the best out of him. If we're paying him like the amount of money we probably are paying him, he's probably going to be our best paid player. You've got to get the best out of him. You've got to find a way of getting him in that starting lineup.
Yeah, exactly.
Another player, I think... Sorry, go on, Mike.
Well, I was just going to say, even play him as a number 9. I know he said he prefers to play as a 10, but he has played as a 9 before, and it's not like we've got anyone else playing that position doing a brilliant job right now. So
won't make any difference if it belongs to him, though, will it? You say you haven't got anyone else playing that position at the moment. Brad Young.
Wow.
Is it time we went with him and a bit of youth and energy in the striker role? He looked lively when he came on. He did as well as he could in very difficult circumstances. He played. I mean, we don't talk about the game itself really, but he did play in the Peters Trophy game in midweek. He scored twice, and from what it looks like, he looked like he was the one causing all the problems and actually having all the chances. And maybe we need to just be bold and go with it. I don't want to see Alessandro starting there this week. That's not a problem with Alessandro. It just isn't working. And Beach needs to realise that. We said when we saw that starting lineup, we looked and we thought, where are the goals coming from in that attack? Really, in the way we're playing at the moment? We just didn't really have the confidence that it was going to happen.
Certainly.
So, yeah, I mean, would you agree? Yeah, Young, worth a chance?
Yeah, yes. Certainly. I think he's done enough for me when he's come off the bench. He's looked lively enough. And if we are going to insist on long ball, he seems to at least want to give it a go and challenge for it.
At least cause problems to the defenders, which Abrahams really wasn't doing when he was in there, and Alessandro's not that kind of player either.
Which, again, I do keep saying you can't totally blame Abrahams for that, but because that's not what he is about. But, I think Young is, for me, he's done enough. In every time I've seen him come off the bench, he's done enough to, and he looks like he wants to start games as well.
Yeah,
when he comes on. So definitely for me, yes.
There's a noticeable difference between the way he looks when he comes on and plays and everything to what Elias Sorensen looked like when he was on loan at Newcastle.
Yeah, exactly.
He looks like he really wants to be, and he wants to make an impact, and he looks angry that he's not playing and he's not being involved. So fair play to him. Before we get onto the match predictions, Mike, quickly, defence and keeper. Do we need change there? Is it maybe time Morgan Feeney had a run? We mentioned the fact that Corey Whelan didn't have the greatest game at centre-back at the weekend. Is it worth Feeney having a game?
Yeah, I mean, Whelan has had some good games, but I do think that Feeney for me... Feeney for me. Yeah, he's like the hybrid. Feeney does look like a very good player, and I think long term, because obviously he's had his fitness issues, but he should be one of the first names on the team sheet when fit. And by all accounts, he had a good game the other night. So why not stick him in there?
Is it worth Lucas Jensen having a go between the sticks?
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to pick my gloves off the shelf, to be honest. The way Norman's been playing, I'm a bit overweight, but I think I can at least get to the end of my 6-yard box by the time a corner lands. I mean, I say it doesn't need wholesale changes, but I think
you're not talking this all around to him, are you? There you go.
Yeah.
Right, let's do match predictions then, Mike. So Dan sent me his. I'll do Dan's first. So here's what Dan's predictions are.
My prediction for this Saturday, couldn't get much tougher really. Forest Green at home, probably the strongest team in the league so far. They haven't conceded for 4 games. They're top for a reason. I think we'd be happy with a draw. So I'm hoping we can sort of get maybe a 1-1 draw. And I'll go for Brad Young to get a chance and score the goal.
There you go. Dan's giving us his prediction there. Mike, what's yours going to be?
Well, I'm going to do a podcast first, and I'm going to back us to lose, to be honest with you, because I can't see past it. I mean, we are unbeaten at home, I think, still, aren't we? I think that's worth noting.
That's 3 games.
Yeah, but I think from what I see our players, there's just no sort of bounce back ability in them, and I think we'll lose 2-0.
Wow, 2-0 defeat.
Yeah.
There you go. You're going to go for an attendance. Dan didn't give us his, but I'll get it off him at the end.
I'll go for 4,022. I think it's going to be low.
I was going to say 4,023, and I'm going to stick with that just to put you.
Oh, you're one of them.
4,023. I'm going with my attendance. My prediction for the game. When I did it with the lads from Heavens Devils, I said I thought we were going to lose 2-1. It was the first time I'd done that. I can't believe I'm going to do this. 2-1 win. 2-1 win. John Mellish and Brad Young goals. 4,023 there. The comeback's on. The Beach Boys are back.
I mean, it would.
Did I sound like I believe that?
It would be very Carlisle United for that to happen.
It'd be so typical, absolutely typical Carlisle United, and we'll have a barnstorming game where we basically just batter them basically for most of it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. Why not? Let's just mix it up a little bit.
I'll have what you've been drinking, to be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly. Right, let's go on to the X-Files, Mike, before we round it up. Lots to cover. We've got 2 weeks worth here, so here we go. Ryan Bowman, he scored a goal for Shrewsbury versus Sheffield Wednesday. I think it was a 1-1 draw. Big result that for Shrewsbury because they've been struggling this season. Charlie Wykes finally got off the mark for Wigan, and my word is he got off the mark. 3 games in a row he scored. He got a brace for Wigan against Accrington Stanley, and then he scored goals against Cheltenham and Sheffield Wednesday. Max Amer, he scored, but unfortunately it was in the wrong net for Gillingham as they were beaten 4-1 by MK Dons. Matty Douglas has been busy. He scored a goal for Annan in their win over Elgin City, but then got sent off against Edinburgh City. Arthur Ganua, he got himself on the score sheet for Morecambe. 2 goals in their win over Crewe Alexandra. They're having a hell of a good season, Morecambe, aren't they?
They really are as well.
So much better than they expected.
Yeah, definitely. And I thought they'd come straight back down, but it shows what I know.
Yeah. Ashton Ellison was sent off for Crawley in their game against Harrogate. Harrogate, again, having a brilliant season this season so far. Connor Thompson, former sort of youth team and was first year professional, but then Curl had no interest in playing him. He scored a brace for Blythe Spartans. They beat FC United of Manchester in the FA Cup. Interestingly, this game was also famous for the fact that ex-United youth keeper Alex Mitchell became famous for his time wasting. Basically, if you've seen the video of this, Mike, it's quite funny.
Yeah.
The fact that he turned his back and then the ball hit his head, and a proper arsehole would have just gone down there like he was injured. But he sort of like hit his head and then turned around like, well, why are you doing that? You're just wasting more time. But there you go. So that was Connor Thompson. Paddy Madden, he scored a goal for Stockport County in their 2-1 win over Wrexham. Not a great start for Aaron Hayden there so far. They're just outside the playoffs, I think, in the National League. Ben Richards Everton, former youth player, he scored a goal for Barnet in their win over Weymouth. Ashley Eastham scored a vital 90th minute equaliser for Salford City in their 2-2 draw with Northampton. Big result that, because Salford are really struggling so far this season.
Yeah, really are.
Yeah, really finding it tough. It's another week, another Cole Stockton goal haul. He scored a brace for Morecambe in their 3-3 draw over Accrington Stanley, and then he scored a goal v Lincoln City in their win against them the other night. Stephen Rigg, I think, got his first goal since re-signing for Workington in their game against 1874 Northwich. George Waring scored a goal for Chester in their big win over Blythe Spartans. And Kedwin Scott once again scored for Gateshead in their win over Gloucester City. That's ridiculous, that, isn't it? That's National League North, and it's Gateshead against Gloucester City.
Yeah, that's how ridiculous the
split can be on that, isn't
it?
It's daft. In terms of transfers, just a couple here. Jordan Cook, he signed for Hartlepool after leaving Gateshead over the summer. And Ethan Walker has joined AFC Fylde on an emergency loan deal. bit of a drop down for him, isn't it, really? But
I thought he could still do a job for us, to be honest with you.
I think it's one of those ones he just needs to sort of reset, really, doesn't he? Go out and get a loan, get a few games, and then probably get a longer loan in January, I'd guess, at a higher level. In terms of other bits of news, we missed this one last time. Stephen O'Halloran, he stepped up from a player role to a player assistant manager role at Stalybridge Celtic. Brad Potts signed a new deal at Preston North End. On the photos, he was flagged by his agent or representative, none other than Graham Kavanagh, who's in that role now. Liam McCarran, your mate Mike, he signed a new 2-year deal at Leeds United. He also was on the bench for them again the other day, wasn't he?
Yeah, by all accounts, from that Holdsworth interview the other week, we're due quite a bit of money when he plays for Leeds. So
nice when
fingers crossed for that.
When he finally does. The final little bit of news, it's a new job role for Paul Simpson at Bristol City. He's now the first team coach with Curtis Fleming, the ex-United guest, v Shelbourne, remember that? He's taken on the assistant head coach there role under Nigel Pearson. So quite a Carl United connection, their coaching team, isn't there? Fair to say. And that's it, Mike. Another bumper episode for everyone there this week. Thanks to all our sponsors, the London branch, obviously, that sponsored the second half of the show. Remember, you can subscribe to the podcast on all good podcast apps, Spotify, Acast, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. If you can give a review on those apps, please do, and give us a 5-star review. More people will find out about it. If we're not on an app that you use, let us know. We can try and get onto that app as well. And you can follow us on social media at Brunton Bugle on Twitter. We're also on Facebook. You can email us bruntonbugle@gmail.com, and we're on the Cumbrians.net message board and on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group as well. In terms of upcoming episodes, we'll be back next week with a preview of the Bristol Rovers game, and we're going to hopefully be recording my CUFC 11 episode next week. If we can fit it in with Dan, I'm hoping to get that done. And that's it, Mike, isn't it, I think, for another week?
Yeah, I think that's covered all the boxes. Let's hope that next week's isn't
miserable. Hopefully we'll be a bit more upbeat. We'll be happy and we'll be talking, right, this is the start of the recovery. But I think it's probably fair to say we're not overly optimistic about that, are we?
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, one thing that we didn't mention, if we are to lose, will Beach still be here for next week?
Depends on the performance and the result, really, isn't it? If it's another 4-0, then he had to go. He has to. And if that happens,
is it kind of a bit of a free pass game because Forest Green are good anyway? Do you know what I mean?
Who knows? Mike, thanks for your time as usual, and thanks everyone for listening.
Cheers.
Up the Blues.
Up the Blues.
All are united within a song.